Now we are honored to welcome Professor Kaushik Basu. Dr. Kaushik Basu is a renowned Indian economist and professor known for his significant contribution to development, economic, and public policy. He has served as the Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India and as the President of International Economic Association. Dr. Basu has held academic positions at prestigious institutions like Cornell University and the Delhi School of Economics. His research covers a wide range of topics including economic development, public policy, and game theory. The guest of honor for the day to share a few words with us, please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Principal ma'am, the founders of Filix School and Nanritam, the teachers, students, the staff participating in this. It is a great pleasure for me to be here today. I've been coming to Nanritam now from 2012, if I'm not mistaken, 12 or 13, I've been coming here. December, yes, she also knows the month. I didn't know the month, I knew it was 2012. 2012 December. One part of the school I had never been to is the rooftop. So thank you for letting me into this very, very special place and special occasion. I have to say, first of all, to the office bearers, the new students who have been elected into various offices, congratulations. I know that this was done in a very democratic style. There was an election, people voted, you made your positions clear, and you were elected into this. Congratulations, and to all of you, a hand to the ones who are elected. Let me just say a few things, as your Priyanka ma'am has been telling me to tell you, about the kind of responsibility right now you will have as a student leader, but it is also something to carry through life when you get into different kinds of leadership. You know, you took a pledge just now. I was listening very carefully to the words of the pledge. That's wonderful. But you have to remember that politicians very often take the pledge and then soon begin to forget about the pledge. Tell yourself that it's a pledge that you want to take seriously, you want to remain committed to it and remember it. Some of you, those who are elected, and maybe those who ran for the election didn't get elected. Life is complicated. Maybe some of those who didn't get elected also later on in life will get to positions of power and decision making and leadership. In fact, it is entirely possible that those who are right now in the back of the class, don't talk very much, did not run for this, will at a later stage flower into a position of leadership. This happens all the time. I know, for instance, from my own academic background, I used to take no interest in studies in school, used to be a backbencher. Then I became an academic. My life flowered out in a totally different direction. You should be prepared for it. You know, I don't like to give lectures about what to do, but in today's global climate, which is so troubled, I do want to tell you a few words. You know, having certain basic ethical standards that you take through life is very important. There will be moments, there will be times when your personal interest will come in. Amar kache, good, eta khola jokhon better. Your personal interest will come in, but you have to remember that if you are an office bearer, you're in a position where other people's lives matter on you. I also want to remind you that we, of course, work for our people, our family, our group. But one reminder which I personally carry through life, and I like to remind people, that over and above everything, we are human beings. That is our most important fundamental identity, and we have to carry that. And this is not just thinking in the air. If you look back at distant history, the evolution of human beings, we all came out of Africa. We come from the same roots. If you track down people sufficiently far into history, we will probably find common ancestors. Me, someone sitting in Africa, someone sitting in Latin America. It's very, very likely that we will find common ancestors for us, the same genetic stream flowing through us. This is a philosophy which I must remind you, in the Bengal Renaissance and the Bengal thinking, from Rammohn Roy to Rabindranath Tagore, this has been very, very fundamental, that our basic identity is this common identity. I must tell you a personal experience. Many years ago, I went to Mexico, southern Mexico, where I spent 3 days with a local indigenous family. They are called Zapotecs. Zapotecs dress differently from us, talk differently from us, and these were relatively poor people. I stayed in their home. The first day, I was really feeling very different. I'm from India. I've lived in the United States. Nothing to do with the indigenous population of Mexico. But at the end of the third day, listening to the father, mother, mother-in-law, the children, the jokes, the laughter, little bits of fights that were breaking out, I kept feeling that this could have been my household. The language is different, the dress style is different, but in fundamental ways we are the same. And I feel it is so very important to remember that in today's world, that our biggest commitment should be to humanity. And if you rise to a position of leadership in our troubled world today with conflict and division, you have to remind people that we all come from a common origin and we want to uphold that commonness of human beings. Let me tell you also a little bit about my own, let me back up a little bit. For me, since I was being told to talk a little bit about politics, political leadership, I have no experience in that. I worked with politicians, with prime ministers, presidents, ministers. I worked very closely in India and in different countries when I was in the World Bank, but I have no direct experience. My, in fact, only direct experience was my father, Amar Baba. My father went into politics, and it was a very interesting trajectory. My father was born quite poor, and actually later when he was growing up, they became very poor because his father died prematurely. There were 8 brothers, 4 sisters, so 12 of them, father gone, living in a small place in North Kolkata. My father was a very, very good student, but he had to suddenly stop for a few years, trying to earn basic minimum income for the parents and for the brothers and all to survive. Then he started doing law, not because he knew someone, he thought he'll do well as a lawyer. He used to tell me that those days, law was what you did if you had nothing else. So he was already quite senior. He joined up for law and thought slowly he will get a degree while teaching in a school and earning a little bit of money for his household. Later on in life, his legal practice flourished. He did become very well off, and he decided to stand for election. I think for my father, he was also not a political person, but he thought he wanted to prove to himself that coming from a background of great poverty, by the time I was born, I'm the youngest child in the family, he was doing well. But my sisters, elder sisters, say they remember the period of great hardship for my father. But my father, once he became mayor of Calcutta, he went to a school in North Kolkata And I've forgotten other stories, but this is stuck in my head. He said when he got down from the car, he was the mayor of the city. People rushed up with mala and all kinds of things to hand over to him. And he suddenly remembered that when he was about 12 years old, at that spot, he was coming with muri in one hand and with some other food in another hand, which he had bought for his household. And his gamcha was coming off. And he said it was a very difficult for him moment, handling the muri, the food, and keeping the gamcha in place. And he said he suddenly remembered that now as a mayor. And for me, that is a symbol of how life can change dramatically. My next interaction with politics was again totally unexpected, as I've told you in stories before to some of you. I was a professor teaching. I had come to India for a vacation when I suddenly got this call from the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's office asking if I will be the chief economic advisor to the government. I was excited and nervous. But I said that, look, this is such a big question. Joint Secretary phoned me and asked me. I said, on the phone, I can't tell you yes or no. I need to meet the Prime Minister, ask the Prime Minister what he expects, and then I will decide. But I said, there is one problem. Tomorrow evening, my tickets have been bought already for me to go back to America where I teach. So I don't have time. So she said, sir, put down the phone. I will call you back in 10 minutes. She did that. In 10 minutes, she called back and said, I just spoke to the Prime Minister and he is requesting that you come tomorrow on your way to the airport so you don't have to miss your flight or change anything. Come with the baggage, come and see him and talk to him. I had this conversation with him for about 40 minutes about what he expected. I made it very clear to him that I'm not a political person. I can't take a political line just because it is the party line. And I must tell you, it made me feel very good. He said, that's the reason why I want you. I want independent, good ideas to be brought to the table. I will handle the politics. That he was not very good at handling politics. He was an amazingly upright, honest person. But the everyday politics, the murkiness of politics, he was not good. That, fortunately, the finance minister, Pranab Babu, with whom I worked very closely, could handle the politics much better. But I went in there. Then it was 3 years of interacting with, of course, our politicians and with others. And I'll tell you again, there were lessons that I learned importantly. First, in the beginning, after 2-3 weeks, I was so fed up. I didn't like working with politicians and all. I wanted to go back to Cornell. I had to tell myself I will cause great embarrassment if I do, so I stayed on. Then again, there were good moments also. There were tough moments, good moments. 2 things I'll tell you, and you as students, if you grow up into political positions or advisory positions, it's worth keeping in mind. One is, I know only from the economics point of view, there are sciences and other disciplines. You know, in a top decision making in economics, some decisions are intuitive, guesswork, and common sense. And whatever idea an expert brings, a politician can say, no, I don't agree, I'll do something else. But there are some parts of economic ideas which are like engineering, as precise as that. If there you try to bring in your common sense and political sense and override specialists, you will make drastic mistakes. One example, which I've once in a classroom mentioned, auction. How you design an auction, it's got a full mathematical structure. And auction theory is like an engineering problem. Very beautifully worked out. If I had more time, not today, I would happily give you examples of that. Can be very exciting. I managed to persuade the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh that 3G spectrum should be sold, not by bureaucrats valuing it and handing it over to corporates, but through an auction so that various companies are forced to bid for it. And actually the auction, the details, the amount of fund raised was quite amazing that happened through that. Corruption control, again, is a domain where People get very angry when they see corruption, rightly so. It's infuriating. Fortunately, again, I have to say, I worked with someone who was personally totally incorruptible. So with him, I could have discussions on how to design corruption control. You know, corruption you should be angry about, but you can't do foolish things to stop corruption, because you will stop regular economic activity if you try to stop corruption with a blunt instrument. It needs design, it needs planning. Once again, it needs the kinds of things that you're learning, the fine thinking to design and how to do it well. The final word I will tell you, I was thinking good moments and bad moments. One bad moments, there were some, but I won't on this happy occasion tell you about the bad moments. I'll tell you about one more good moment. Democracy and the power of democracy. Democracy is difficult, but still, you know, India was a global pioneer in democracy. For a developing country as poor as this, to have a system of democracy of the kind that we inherited and started with, lots of faults, lots of difficulties, but it was an amazing achievement to start on that. One vote for one person, anonymous voting. Very few developing countries would have that. India took that. We should take pride in that. For me, one moment of such pride, which people in government treated differently, was the year 2011. Amartya Sen, Professor Amartya Sen, my PhD advisor, came to give a major big lecture in Delhi, in Vigyan Bhavan, the big auditorium. And the organizers, I had nothing to do with the invitation, the organizers decided that they will invite the Prime Minister to be on the stage to make opening and closing remarks. Manmohan Singh agreed, and he came, and Amartya Sen, Amartya Da to me, got up on the stage and started speaking about global economic policy, India's economic policy, little bit of politics. Then at one moment, he paused and he was talking of global politics, and he said, I feel very bad that my friend, the Prime Minister of India, does not take a different position on Myanmar. Myanmar and the military junta. He criticized the Prime Minister for the position he took and not taking a much tougher stance against the military government in Myanmar. Manmohan Singh sitting on the stage, Amartya Sen criticizing Manmohan Singh. I remember next to me, senior government bureaucrats saying, how can he do that? Criticize the Prime Minister sitting on the stage. But that is democracy. He did that. Then what made me feel very good is when the Manmohan Singh's time came, he got up, he made a gentle counter-criticism that why in a political position you have to handle certain realities very differently. Then when they finished, people thought that that's a fight on the stage and that's a crack through them. They were holding hands, laughing, joking. They walked off the stage, that they had made their points. They had genuine disagreements. They expressed it, but that did not affect their friendship and togetherness. These kinds of camaraderie and friendship at the top are cracking up across the world. If you people go into politics, do carry two things. Take ideas, good ideas, brilliant ideas to the table, and also carry some of these fundamental values to the top and try to make a difference to India, and not just for India. Again, our primary identity is a global identity, so that through that, one influences the world for a better world. Thank you very much and congratulations.